Tonight, my goal is to inspire my audience. And the way I'm going to do this is by taking you down this road, which symbolizes the past 8 years of my life. And as you can see, it's pretty nasty, stormy. That's because this past 8 years, I've struggled a great deal with PTSD. And as we go down this road, I'm going to explain how I first arrived at boot camp, how I went to my unit, where I made the 4 combat deployments to Iraq. During these deployments, I had some traumatic events that happened. We're going to go to see where I had the symptoms starting to come up, to where I was full on PTSD and how it affected me, and I was overwhelmed, and how I pretty much I ended up having a mental breakdown because of it, and to where I'm at now, how I've overcome it. And in order to do this, like I mentioned, we have to travel down this road. So as we go down this road, I want everybody to imagine themselves on this road, whether we're in a car, a truck, or maybe even a big school bus, and we're just driving down this road. We're going to arrive to the first day, January 12th, 2004. This is in Parris Island, South Carolina. These yellow footprints are the very first steps you take on your 13 weeks of training through boot camp. The bus rolls up here, you get out, and you go stand on these things because you got this drill instructor who's yelling at you. And those 5 minutes on that bus, the whole conversation, I only remember him saying is, "Get off my bus right now." So we all ran off here, stood on these. Once we stepped off these, we began our 13 fun-filled weeks in boot camp with very nice gentlemen like this drill instructor here. Their job is to sit there and teach you, mold you, guide you, train you, and do everything they can to make you a Marine and make sure that you're tough. So that one day you can say that I'm a Marine and I'm tough. That is where I earned my title, was April 9th, 2004. It was during the ceremony where they give you your globe and anchor, and you can officially say you're a Marine and you're tough, because that is when you're called a Marine for the first time. Now we're going to skip that back on that road, go a few months in the future, because those next few months are training and school, not much happening. This is where I checked in my first squadron, August 28th, 2004, the Purple Foxes. They were a helicopter squadron at Camp Pendleton. When I arrived to them, they told me that within 6 months I would be standing in Iraq. Well, that's what I wanted. That's why I joined the Marines, because I wanted to be a Marine, I wanted to be tough, and I wanted to go fight. I wanted to be in combat. Sure enough, if we go to January 31st, 2005, I was standing in Kuwaiti International Airport in Kuwait City. 1 week later, I was in Iraq for the first time in 2005. During this deployment, my unit, we flew these, the CH-46 Echo helicopter, the Sea Knight. Most of these helicopters served in Vietnam, but yet we were still flying them in Iraq. While we were there, the main goal of our mission, our unit in these helicopters, was to fly CASVAC, or casualty evacuation. And what that is if someone was wounded, we would fly out to that person, wherever they were wounded, we'd pick them up, put them on our helicopter, we'd then fly way over here to another base, drop them off to the surgical unit, and once they were dropped off, we'd go right back to our base in Caudill. Well, when those aircraft would come back, you can imagine, after carrying someone that had been severely wounded in combat, those were not the best looking helicopters. Some of us would have to go clean them out. That would go and clean up all the aftermath from the wounded. Now at the time, as I'm cleaning it, I'm thinking, this is some bad stuff. I seen some really bad stuff. But then again, I was saying to myself, I'm a Marine and I'm tough. So I took all those feelings, I put them in, and I'd stuff them way down there. Because that's what I did. I was a Marine and I was tough. February 7th, 2007, one of our helicopters was shot down. There were 7 crew members lost, but these 4 friends of mine. They were on their way home, last mission, 3 days from returning back to the States. I was one of the Marines that was supposed to go fly in, because we were told that they were alive and we would have to bring them back. So I was one of the Marines, pistol, rifle, flak jacket, toolbox, I was ready to go. As I'm waiting, I was told, they're confirmed dead, you can't go. I refused. No, they're still out there. No, go back to your shop. So I took all those feelings of the pain, suffering, guilt, all that sadness, and I once again stuffed it way down there because I had to keep my head in the game because we were in Iraq. So I was a Marine, enough stuff, and I just kept stuffing. October 26, 2006, this was the young Marine that when we landed, I ran off the helicopter, picked him up, put him on a stretcher, carried the stretcher onto the helicopter, then flew back 5 to 10 minutes. That's the only time I met this guy. But I stood next to the side as he was dying, and unfortunately he did pass away. Now, each time I returned from one of these deployments, it was a year in between the deployments. Well, unfortunately, I struggled. This is where I started feeling the symptoms. All those emotions that I was suppressing were surfacing. So the best way I could figure to handle it was drink. I used to be able to drink a half bottle of whiskey in 3 glasses almost every single night. After I returned from my last deployment, it was just after I returned from my last deployment. After 6 months, we pulled over 140 empty fists of liquor out of my house in 6 months.
Gosh.
From me and my friends. Because I was a Marine. Marines are tough. This is what we do. But eventually, even if you suppress all those, they do surface. And that's just a simple mask. It suppresses it. I was now diagnosed with PTSD. This was really struggle for me. Because all those emotions that I suppressed, it was like a volcano. The pressure built up and it exploded. And all those emotions were like lava. As they came out over me and they destroyed everything. And PTSD is really tricky because even though I've got it from combat, some people get it from abuse, whether it's physical, mental, sexual abuse, car accidents, family, friend, stranger dying. It all affects people. But the way it affected me is when a normal person goes through a traumatic event, your brain will see it and it'll pick it up. It's going to hold it, look at it, and think, that's some bad stuff. But then it's going to set it down because the brain processes it. And then that thing turns into a memory and little birdie and flies away. But for me, when I went through those traumatic events, my brain picked up the event, looked at it, and said, that's some crazy messed up stuff, and he put it right in his pocket. Every once in a while, my brain will say, hey, Rob, remember this? And it pulls it out and hands it to me. But when I get it, I'm like, man, I remember this day. Even though it was 4 years ago, I was seeing it, feeling it, hearing it, and even smelling it as if it was happening right that second. And these events, like 2006, 2007, 2005, years in the past, but yet I was reliving it. And that is where I started to become overwhelmed. I started isolating. When I was in Okinawa in Japan, when this all fully surfaced, I actually lost my position as an ordnance chief. I was in charge of the shop that controlled all the ordnance for our squadron. I lost that right. I was in charge of 8 Marines. Nope, not anymore. You sit on that toolbox, and you go to medical. Because I couldn't function. He would talk to me and I would just start shaking. Because it just overwhelmed me. So then one day, this is a year later, which is recently this year, I finally decided I am not just going to sit on that chair and I'm not going to do this. But instead, I'm going to get up, dust myself off, and I'm going to say, I'm a Marine and I'm tough. I'm not the weak person that I thought it was when I was going through all this, saying, hey, I need help. But instead, I was still tough. I then, down that dark tunnel that I was in, there was like this light, so I started traveling down this. Now, during this dark passage, I got a lot of help. I was on different medications. In fact, to be able to sleep at night, I had 3 different medications. 2 to stop nightmares, and 1 just to knock me out. And that would still take 2 to 3 hours for me to be knocked out, and I would still wake up with nightmares. I had different medications throughout the day to help me relax. And then I started learning about holistic healing. Different meditations, acupuncture, healing touch, which is energy work, where they don't touch you, but they move energy. And that is when I decided that I would make the PTSD suffer just as much as it has made me suffer. And that little symbol up there is like a type of a meditation symbol. So through this, and it's allowed me to where I went from that guy that sat in that toolbox a year and a half ago, not be able to talk to you or even be talked to who can't function, to where now I have someone like Bravo through this company, K9's Warrior. He has done so much for me that I thought about this. My friends told me, put it in words that you can explain it. Well, the only words that I can think that come to mind to me is he's my buddy. He gives me the confidence to be able to go out and do different things. I could go in large crowds, which before I would see a large crowd and my skin would just crawl. It felt like there were snakes under it. Walk away from there, run away from there. I isolated. Now I have to take them out. And I will do anything for him, and I know he would probably do anything for me as long as I have treats. So as I come to an end, now we are in the present. Because before I was looking down that road, now I did a 180, and I look down the road. Yeah, it's still stormy off the distance, but now I've changed my road to where it goes to the sun. Because now it's a new day for me, and I'm a Marine, and I'm tough.